Just a week after the Integrity Ignite Series' shortest track on the schedule, it's a familiar place, but not a familiar time. The round of 10 will instead open with another short venue. Welcome back to the Iowa Speedway for the second time in Ignite Series history. Race number 26 on the campaign. Well, we just passed it. Now we're going to be on our way to number 27, and that's what's ahead of us tonight with 150 laps of feature racing. Iowa Speedway was the regular season finale for the opening season, and it has returned once again, this time as part of the midway of the championship run. 10 drivers are still eligible for the title, 5 will move on to the last round, and 5 will be held back. It's not win or go home just yet, but a good night here will solidify drivers' chances to go out there and chase the championship. I'll be your host for tonight's broadcast. I'm David Kreutz, commentating and producing and qualifying, currently halfway down on the timing charts. More drivers now recording lap after lap, minute after minute. And right now we have 2.5 minutes left for drivers to set their times. Currently with the provisional pole, the number 29 of Nick Tarbuck, and then it'll be Cody Smith in third, both of which getting usurped by Thomas Bressi. Thomas taking the top time, and he goes there 13 1,000ths of a second to the top of the board for Thomas Bressi. Now Cody Smith is going to be in third. He finds himself with another strong qualifying run and looking to, of course, play spoiler tonight. Smith not in the championship hunt, the first driver to miss the regular season, of course, playoff transition. 15 drivers so far have taken laps. Bigger field than it was, of course, at Martinsville. We had 20 drivers. Tonight, more than 20 have registered so far, and 15 of which have taken a time. Cal Filarski is going to come up through the higher portion of turns 3 and 4 and wiggles up the track, and so Cal Filarski gonna have to go for a first lap here with a little bit less momentum. And this track, of course, very similar to Richmond Raceway. Now, we actually discussed this Saturday night when the SNT series went over once again to Richmond Raceway. Their championship finale will be held at this venue, and all about keeping that momentum out of the first turn here, so expecting some major gains for Cal Filarski. His first lap of 25.121. Vinny Tigner going to put himself up in the 12th, Tom Wetmore 14th, Alan Rawell 17th, and Cal Filarski now the final driver on the circuit. It looks like he and Andrew Schaub will be the last drivers to attempt times. Andrew attempted, was not able to get a complete time on the board. However, Filarski's time will be validated. Good for 17th, moving just ahead of Alan Rawell. Vinny Tigner heads down to pit road. Tom Wetmore going to get some extra practice laps here, and it looks like a very different look for the Tom Wetmore team. Not going to be taking these very familiar Tube Tech Toyota Supra back to the track, and instead plain colors, black and white with Toyota branding. Wetmore going to be a manufacturer car tonight in the final 30 seconds. He's 14th now, so still many positions to gain as the night goes on. Filarski going to be 17th right now, taking some extra times as well. The top 10 drivers in qualifying are spread by 1/10.5. The overall field that took times is spread by 7/10. The top 5 is only divided by 55 1,000ths of a second. As Cal Filarski heads down to pit road, qualifying is over, and it's a familiar face at the top of the board. Thomas Bressi collecting the pole position here in Iowa. Got through for podium finish last week. Maybe a chance now to bring up 2 more spots and find victory yet again. 5 more minutes here for drivers to get those extra practice laps in, and we'll see, of course, who's the first out. Looks like Blake Gordon right now going to be on the circuit, the only driver taking it out of pit road. We'll talk a little bit more about Blake Gordon, who was one of the 2 drivers who collected win or lose, do or die victories in the championship last round, and he might have to do so once again given his current position. First and foremost, let's get to know the starting grid for tonight's race. More than 20 drivers, so once again, seeing that increased participation at the bigger circuit. 7-8-mile track here in Iowa Speedway, and it's great to be back for the Ignite the Excitement 150. Thomas Bressi, Nick Tarbuck, who are top 3 contenders in 2023 at this venue, they've returned once again. First and second, number 24 machine grabbing the pole, and on the outside of him, it'll be Nick Tarbuck in that number 29. You got Cody Smith, who will be playing spoiler. He's going to find himself inside of row number 2 in the 3rd position. And Rob Ackley's going to be right behind his teammate, both of which are still in contention for the championship. Ackley will start 4th and overall title leader all throughout the season, and then be Braxton Weiss, P5, with Don Stevenson, the last driver to make it into this round. He is in 6th. Matthew Thunhorst, the site where he was able to crown himself regular season champ in 2023A, well, he's starting 7th tonight, so still some gains to be made. Michael Stroll going to be 8th, Chad Mikas 9th, and then Blake Gordon is in 10th. So of the drivers in your top 10 in points, every one of which except one qualifies inside the top 10. The one driver left out will be starting in 11th. That's going to be Jacob Fife, your defending race winner, who just got the checkered flag at Martinsville in a clutch victory that moved him up to 5th in the standings. Vinny Tigner going to be in P12, and Brendan Bernhardt will be in 13th, with Tom Wetmore 14th, Kyle Cooper 15th, Daniel Foss 16th, Cal Filarski P17, and Alan Rowell, the final driver to take a time. Additional participants tonight will be 19th and 20th Chuck Sweeting and Brian McFerrin, with 21st Boomer Logan, then 22nd and last Andrew Schaub with the number 55, rounding out your starting grid in Iowa. Welcome back to the cornfields of Newton. It's great to go playoff racing in the Ignite the Excitement 150. And we mentioned that playoff dominance, something that we don't often discuss when it comes down to qualifying anyway, because usually race pace shakes these drivers out about the same. But of the top 10 drivers, 9 of which made it into the next round, and you could argue that Chad Mikas would have been one of those drivers if only he had not missed the opening race of last round in Darlington. Nevertheless, Jacob Fife here with a little bit of work to do. He'll be the lowest position driver in qualifying to still be in the playoffs. Starting 11th today as your 5th seed, Jacob Fife figured out how to win once again, and he's been very strong at the short tracks this season. 2nd place at USA International. He was able to get the job done, winning in Martinsville last week as well, so this is certainly a driver who can find a victory lane. He's done it twice so far this season. His first win came at Talladega in the spring, and of course now, with that momentum, he's got a lot to be, of course, proud of when it comes to the campaign. Getting his first 2 Ignite Series wins, and at long last breaking that streak from last year where he could just not find victory lane. Now though, he definitely has to step it up, because there's drivers here who are under the cut who have the speed. Matthew Thunhorst, one of which, who's certainly looking for a better round. He stumbled into the round of 10, but based on that major points buffer he had, it's a given that as long as he made those first 3 races, he would be here again today. And so you find Matthew Thunhorst quickest in the timing sheets right now in this second practice session. His fast time, a 23.771, that would have been good for P5 on the starting grid. He'll be starting 7th tonight, so maybe a little bit more time, a little bit more pace has been brought in for Thunhorst as he drops down to pit road. Thomas Bressi once again puts the quick time in, and that is going to be a 23.715 here. So track conditions maybe going to change just a bit as the night goes on. Forecast-based weather means yes, conditions will not remain constant. Expect some fluctuation in lap time. We might see some slower times to begin the race as it's noon here in the virtual Iowa Speedway, and so drivers will be dealing with increasingly warmer track temperatures as the night progresses. Fastest driver in qualifying will be fastest in the last practice. Thomas Bressi with a quick time of 23.715 is the fastest man in warm-up. Now practice concludes, 150 laps are ahead of us. Very similar to the S&T race we saw, which was at the virtual Richmond Raceway. Vinny Tigner, a competitor in that event, found himself good for a top 5 finish, won that night by Matthew Weeks. Overall, we had 3 cautions in that race, 2 of which in the first 10 laps, one at about the halfway point, and that's one thing to mention, halfway will be pivotal for strategy tonight. Now drivers are going to go side by side with one another as we are in formation. Time we go racing again here in Iowa, a track that we have visited multiple times before. However, In this situation, the playoffs, not yet. Let's talk about track conditions here tonight. When it comes down to the track temperature, 94 degrees Fahrenheit, an ambient temperature of 75 degrees, partly cloudy skies, and it looks like time will be changing at 2 speed, which means in an hour's worth of time, you'll see 2 hours of weather changing, including the winds, humidity, and track temp. Winds right now will be southbound at 8 miles an hour and a relative humidity at 54%, quite moderate overall, and still the track temperature not scorching yet, but it's surely going to get warmer now that drivers put down rubber. Now, iRacing pace car giving the signal to hop out of neutral and get rolling for the first time tonight. Let's take a look now at Thomas Bressi downstairs as he will lead Tarbuck and all the company behind. This is a wonderful opportunity to get some green flag racing in to kick off the round. Now, that's not to say the tracks we have up next will not foster that sort of racing. We have ourselves an intermediate up next on the calendar. That's going to be, of course, Las Vegas for 140 laps. And then we have the Magic Mile, 150 laps, coming in at New Hampshire. So, we have some unique circuits to finish off the season and one last traditional intermediate. Iowa might be the safest bet, ironically enough. And we said that about Talladega perhaps for some drivers. Eventually, of course, Blake Gordon got his one and only do-or-die victory of the season so far. That's why he's in the next round with us today. So, for those drivers who know they have short track prowess, maybe someone like Blake Gordon, who has been dominant at circuits under a mile in length, maybe someone like Jacob Fife, who literally just won in Martinsville. Those drivers who have been proven talents at circuits of this nature before, time for them to go racing again and battle under the lights. The light of the sun on track, but the pressure and all that remains here. 3 races in this round to determine who goes on to the championship finale with a chance at the title. Thomas Bressi once again on the pole position. He's been the most successful driver all season long. Overall leading the championship out of the first round, taking it away from overall favorite throughout the regular season, Braxton Deweese. Thomas so far with 4 wins, the most of any championship contending driver, and he's looking to make it 5 if, of course, he were to succeed tonight. Number 24 going to be on the inside groove as we get going once again from Iowa. Green flags out and the Ignite the Excitement 150. Thomas Bressi leads us into the action. Thomas Bressi going to jump away with a car length and a half lead. Nick Tarbuck then in second. The Hornets' nest going to be further on back. Jacob Fife already making it up and ahead of Blake Gordon here, and now due to go side by side with the number 3, and that'll be Michael Stroll. So already going to begin seeing that contention between the best drivers in the field, now who are going at each other toe-to-toe for early position. Let's talk about the drivers tonight who are coming in under the bubble from 6th down to 10th. First and foremost, the man directly under Jacob Fife in the championship standings, the first ever Ignite Series winner, Rob Ackley. He's got multiple drivers to work with here as teammates in this penultimate round. He's got 2 drivers that we will mention as the night goes on. So first and foremost, let's talk Rob Ackley and give you a profile of the number 22. So far, 1 win on the season, so he has collected a checkered flag to this point, and with that, he's gotten 6 top 5s and 13 top 10s. He's been a model of consistency, particularly in the opening half of the campaign, and now he finds himself leading his teammates on track for the time being, but he'll be swallowed up 3 wide. Micus goes down to the bottom. Matthew Thunhorse goes right up top. Ackley tonight, the big goal is staying ahead of his teammates if there's any real chance. Noticing DJ Stagner is not here tonight, and with that being said, DJ is going to fall all the way back down to the bottom of the pylon in terms of the standings. So for Rob Ackley's intents and purposes, he would move up to net 5th if the race were to start and stop in only 1 lap's time. But he's got to hang on because this is a perfect opportunity to cleanly and freely enter the top 5. He just has to make sure he makes no major mistakes, as you saw a little bit of contact there right behind, and that was the number 3 of Michael Stroll, who's now battling with Blake Gordon. Gordon, winner at Talladega, a necessary win for him, even though, yes, he was very strong when it came down to Martinsville, able to come away with another podium finish. It was not meant to be for victory, which was necessary for this Endeavor Racing number 19 team. Now, with Blake collecting his first win of the season, he's got himself a lot of work to do. He comes in with, compared to every other driver in the championship, the fewest top 5s and the fewest top 10s. 4 top 5s and 10 top 10s respectively, a number that is lower than most everyone else. Jacob Fife has 4 top 5s but 15 top 10s, so even compared to someone like Fife, who also made his way in through a clutch performance, Gordon does not have the numbers to really make things happen. That, of course, could change. Victory and a podium in the last 2 weeks, his best 2 performances coming in the clutch. Blake Gordon just has to keep up that momentum if, of course, he wants to keep his championship fight alive. 8th place coming into the championship standings tonight is Michael Stroll, a driver who's fought tooth and nail to even be in this point. He had multiple races of a deficit and had to go on a tear. He's been torrid ever since he returned. Michael Stroll has fewer races ran than anyone else. He has 20 starts so far. This will be his 21st. In that period, he's gotten himself a victory, 12 top 10s, and 8 top 5s. If you were to extend those averages out, he'd be right there neck and neck with the likes of which including Bressie, DeWeese, and Thunhorst. His biggest disadvantage, simply not having the notebook this year compared to all those drivers around him, and still trying to pick up the pieces of that deficit. You got to keep them picking up as quick as possible now, because there's no extra room to sort of get yourself collected. At this point, if you aren't ready to go, you're done for. But Michael Stroll has proven that he's had the pace to compete. Now he's just got to make sure this round goes swimmingly. Just coming in with that disadvantage to start and not winning in our previous round, not going to help him. He comes in 8th, but he still is ahead of Nick Tarbuck, the first of 2 drivers to not yet find himself with a victory. Nick Tarbuck has 2 pole positions, 10 top 10s, and a very consistent number of 17 top 10s. He has only a total, matter of fact, of 10 top 5s. So even though he hasn't been outstanding, he has been consistently good with a top 10 rate so far on the season of 71%. Nick Tarbuck has proven again and again that he is one of the best drivers in this league. Not just this series, he's a member of the Big 3 on Tuesday nights. And right now he finds himself in the Big 3 of the podium right now. He's in 2nd. He got by his teammate Micus and Rob Ackley alike, and now finds himself fighting up there in the leading places. So tonight is a big night for Nick Tarbuck. Success is major because Nick has won at this circuit before. Remember 2023 in the Octane Series. His first ever Octane win came at this track. It was a battle between he and Ethan Lane. Lane was the winner at the checkered flag. He was penalized in post-race. Nick Tarbuck took the win. And so, maybe he's going to need that fortune again to find himself in victory lane. Nevertheless, a victory would be huge for the 29 team. And of course, for Nick Tarbuck, he's got to be there with all of his teammates, including Michael Stroll, Rob Ackley, and the driver who's not in championship contention, Chad Micus. Last but definitely not least is Don Stevenson, who I would say is the big surprise. The fact he made it in is just coming down to sheer consistency in that last round. His statistics are not very surprising, but they're also not necessarily impressive. 5 top 5s, 15 top 10s, and a total of 0 pole positions. He's one of only 2 drivers in this field who's still competing for the championship anyway without a win, and the only driver of which to both lack a pole and a victory. Don Stevenson is the odd man out by all intents and purposes, and that's not really something that works in his favor until you consider he's been relatively anonymous so far. As it stands, he's been able to put together a solid season, but he needs top 5 runs to have a chance right now running in 7th. Solid. He's in front of a few championship contenders, but this is really nothing special. And in all honesty, the best thing for him is he got in because of how the playoff picture worked at Martinsville. Significant damage to drivers such as Kyle Cooper, and even though Don didn't have the best of nights, he was able to come away by working the system well and got up there in the top 10. Now he's going to find himself alongside Blake Gordon. That's a rundown of your drivers who are still in championship contention, who are coming in under the bubble. Currently, Thomas Bresci, who finds himself up in the first position. He's leading the way. He's up there 19 out of 150. Advantageous. Let's take a look back from Bresci's perspective. So far, everyone's staying right in line. Single file with Nick Tarbuck here and Thomas Bresci, positions 1 and 2. Very little trouble for these drivers to now just control the race up and ahead and staying calm with track position. Again, for Thomas Bresci, he really only needs to make through with top 5 finishes consistently. For some drivers, consistency isn't even what they need. It's more so just showing up each and every race. Talking about the bubble and the battle in that respect, well, right now, Jacob Fife sits on the bubble at 4,007 points. Up 10 points is going to be Thomas Bresci. Down 7, that's where Don Stevenson is. So the field is spread by only 17 points overall. It's a minute difference between the best and the worst on track. And that's what it comes down to here. The points resetting and bonus points being applied. Now, significantly closer, both Thomas Bresci and Nick Tarbuck alike, and all their competitors here. Braxton DeWeese has been quiet. He did get a victory in the last round, and now he's looking, of course, to do it once again and lock himself in. Bresci and DeWeese were the drivers who dominated Darlington, and Lady in Black went their way first and second, respectively. Now it looks like it's going to be Braxton DeWeese once again looking down at the bottom and trying to go toe-to-toe with the number 29 of Nick Tarbuck. Looking to the inside, however, briefly, Nick Tarbuck is going to be able to hang on a second, and he will keep his spot. Jacob Fife right now is going to be in P7. Then you got 8th there just behind in Blake Gordon. But now Jacob looking for 6th, dives to the inside of Chad Micus. Micus, although eliminated from the playoff picture last week, has returned once again, and the job for him, it's not done yet. He's still looking for a victory or 2 more, and although Chad was not able to make it out of that first round, he has had a remarkable season. Came in as the 3rd seed in the championship and only missed by virtue of Jacob Fife's improbable victory, which propelled him up the championship ladder in a position where he can still contend for the title to this day. Not something that we expected, of course, for the driver, the number 25, to miss. However, he finds himself now in a position where victories are the top accolade. Jacob Fife got through, but only just. Now Chad Micus has the position once again. Taking a look further back, battles outside of the championship picture. Chuck Sweeting and Cal Falarski going at each other. Cal going to be in 17th right now, which is relative to where he qualified exactly the same. 17 to 17, no positions gained or lost. Chuck Sweeting at 19th up to 18th, so up 1 on the day. Every driver who took the green flag is still on the lead lap. Only one driver in Boomer Logan now finding himself off the circuit as our admin for tonight's race. Thomas Bresci still holds fort. Top 5 drivers separate by only 0.6 of a second. Cody Smith is the last of which. 6th place, Chad Micus. 7th place is going to be now Jacob Fife. Blake Gordon is in 8th. Ackley and Michael Stroll are going to be teammates here, so now we have domination, intimidation, racing going at itself. And of course, the question becomes whether or not Michael Stroll can keep up if Don Stevenson throws himself into the middle. Looking to the inside, here comes the 47 of Stevenson, but not quite. High Groove has been doing a great job today, and that's something interesting we've noted. Drivers who have been a little bit more aggressive have tried tried to lunge down to the inside. Hasn't quite worked out so far. Instead, it looks like working on the middle has been preferable relative to everything else. And that's how Michael Stroll has been able to maintain position. So Stroll's going to remain 10th, Don Stevenson 11th, Vinny Tigner is in 12th. Tom Wetmore is in 13th, and of all the championship spoilers, we'll have to run down their positions. First and foremost, you got Micus, who is now in the 8th spot. Then you have a little bit further back, Vinny Tigner in 12th. 13th is Tom Wetmore, and so on and so forth from there are all drivers who are not in championship picture either. So it looks like right now, very few relevant championship spoilers. The best of the best, they find themselves all the way at the head of the field, and then from there on out, those who are not in championship contention are basically out of this race. Here comes now to the inside of the circuit, Cal Filarski's number 91, and he's going to come down for the first pit stop of the day, taken by any driver here, 31 laps in out of 150. Cal going to head down to pit road, now one lap down. This will put Andrew Schaub up into 20th. So now 20 drivers remain on the lead lap, going back to Andrew in that number 55. Thomas Bressi has been able to lead all 32 laps of this race so far. Remember, strategy we are expecting to see halfway, 75 laps as the magic number. 32 in out of 150 means we are halfway through our first stint in really a blink of an eye. 75 laps is what we were expecting based on an unlimited fuel cell. However, for drivers who are less careful with regards to their fuel strategy, expect maybe one or two drivers to go down at about lap 50, maybe up to lap 60. There's almost a certainty that drivers who want to win tonight will go longer than that by at least 10 to 15 more laps. It will not be preferable to come in before the halfway point. Victory comes down to how long you can stretch that first run, because the longer you stretch the first time around, the less you have to worry about the second and final. I think you can see with the drivers and where they're positioning themselves on track that the worry is not about making immediate moves, it's more about getting to that point. A lot of times you talk about superspeedway racing and how, of course, drivers decide nowadays to go single file and stay single file. Now, well, we're seeing that here in Iowa, which is not all too common, but we talked to drivers from Saturday Night Thunder who raced at the very similar Richmond Raceway. Passing is a huge challenge now with the short track package on iRacing. You might remember that just a few weeks ago, the iRacing world got an update to these NASCAR Xfinity machines in anticipation of the NASCAR Contender season for 2024. We'd first like to give a shout out to Ethan Lane for making it into the Contender series as our only Integrity Racing League representative, making a fantastic season out of Road to Pro. You might remember he won a Road to Pro race on FTN. Well, he's made it on to the next round from trucks to the Xfinity series, and well, we talk about the Xfinity series, they have a revamp, and the short track package has been significantly altered. We had an all intents and purposes decent race at Martinsville, but in large part that came down to the fact that it was hard to pass. Strategy was the be all end all, and you might remember that that's how Jacob Fife won. He might have not been the quickest, but he put himself in the right position to get that clean air, and he led from the moment he got the lead until the race concluded. So it's tricky to say whether or not that's the total cause of going single file right now, but it certainly is not easy to pass. And right now, as you take a look at the field, there is no attempt right now to go side by side. Even for someone like Don Stevenson, who's got some pressure from Vinny Tigner, the pressure has been minimal. And that number 12 right now still finds himself lined in right behind the number 47. If we take a look on board, as you can see, everyone right now running more or less the same laps. And taking a listen as we go through the corners, you'll also notice that Vinny Tigner is not at all concerned about clutching and coasting right now, which indicates to us, if anything, that most of these drivers will not be all too worried about going the distance. Going to 75 and beyond will not be all too much a problem. Vinny Tigner is the driver, of course, with experience as recent as a few days ago. He went 75 plus in that last race at Richmond on FTN, and so, since it's the exact same distance that has to be traveled with a very similar layout, I don't think there will be much concern right now for Vinny Tigner, so long as he just does exactly what he's been doing since, of course, last weekend. Don Stevenson going to carry him around the circuit just ahead. Rob Ackley coming up on his teammate once again here in Chad Mikas, and they're going to be single file all the way up to the high side of the circuit. Michael Stroll also going to be there too, and you can notice that more and more drivers are going from the bottom to the middle to all the way up top, which is an interesting strategy call, and I think it's largely influenced now by most drivers just being comfortable with the position they're sitting in. You can see that third groove being used almost entirely now through the high side of 3 and 4. Every driver resides. If we take a look from an eye in the sky here, take it a little bit higher as we will now from the grandstand pavilion. In the front straightaway, you'll see the middle is going to be prominent for drivers, including your leaders as they make it out of the back straightaway once again. For Nick Tarbuck, he'll go all the way down to the inside, which is a huge difference compared to Michael Stroll or Rob Ackley. Ackley's really running it up to the top. Michael Stroll decides to be a little bit more fluid with it. He eventually drops down to the bottom, but there's a clear difference in attitude right now depending on where you are relative to your competitors, especially when it comes to position here. I think in a large part that's influencing the attitudes of drivers. Now Ackley coming up on his teammate for position. This is the battle for net 8th. Maybe Rob going to be given an easier time through here because of course he is in jeopardy when it comes to position rather than of course Rob Ackley here and his teammate Chad Mikas. Chad doesn't have a championship to fight for, his teammate does, and so Mikas is going to have to move back just a bit. Got to give Michael Stroll some room, and Tom Wetmore is going to come to the low side here in that 08, 45 laps in out of 150, and another move made by the 08. It looks like Wetmore gradually gaining, someone we have not mentioned all too much yet. He hasn't really made any remarkable moves, but things might change now, as all of a sudden Wetmore gets in the picture for the top 10 for the first time all night long. Wetmore drop into the ceiling, well, drop into the basement, shall we say, of the circuit. We saw drivers running up high, but they're still running above the apron. Nobody's really taking the risk of dropping under the apron. That's something you might see in 2 weeks' time, though. If we talk about the apron, we talk about New Hampshire, and drivers have been really taking that track differently as of late. Maybe that's something that Thomas Bressi will find himself intrigued in going at. As it stands, Thomas Bressi leading 47 laps in out of 150. Only one retiree so far in Cal Fularski. Nick Tarbuck is in second, Braxton DeWeese in third, and Thomas Bressi has not looked back in the slightest so far. In all honesty, he's got no problem in just maintaining the position he's got, and it looks like, well, everyone else behind him has no issue in doing just that as well. Their issue is whether or not they can even make their way up to Thomas Bressi. Right now on pace, difference is clear. Lap after lap, Thomas has been, relatively speaking, quicker than most everyone else. Maybe now except Nick Tarbuck. That time by, Nick is going to make substantial gains, and that's going to be a gain of 4/100ths of a second. The lap before, just about 1/10 of a second. Sunlight is going to vanish here when it comes to what you're looking at. Track temperature might drop rapidly. Temp is up to 98 degrees Fahrenheit here, so drivers are going to need a break if they don't want to end up slipping or sliding. And now it's going to be completely shady around the track. Maybe a chance for drivers to cool their stuff down as it stands. Braxton DeWeese going to be running a lap time of 25.3 that time through, and his best lap a 24.171. So tire fall off of about 1.5 seconds. To be conservative with an estimate, shall we say a second over the course of 50 laps. First driver to come down and in, that we mentioned, would be at the 50 lap point is Don Stevenson. He's going to decide to do something different and take that alternate call, which is a risk for Stevenson. Keep in mind, he comes in as the 10th and last seed. The next driver to join him, it will be Kyle Cooper. And then you got Alan Rowell, who might decide to go for it next. We'll see whether or not the number 69 decides to. He's up on the high side of the circuit, and I think Alan will decide to stay out at least for now. So two drivers are going to decide to make their way to pit road. It's an interesting call. Keep in mind, though, for the winning strategy, we are expecting the one stop to be the way to go. Being proficient in tire saving and fuel saving is instrumental in finding success. Now, this is what it comes down to, the difference between going a third of the way and going halfway. There's a lot that comes down to the rest of the distance. We've gone, of course, a great way so far. 52 laps in out of 150 without incident. Now it's all up in the driver's hands. Chuck Sweeting is going to be side by side here with Brendan Bernhardt. That's the battle for 14th. Advantage now is going to be Brendan Bernhardt, although Daniel Foss, as you see now from Chuck Sweeting's rear view, might be up next. Let's see what the number 38 can do to maybe add himself into the picture. And Daniel Foss is clearly getting closer. Right now, this is the battle still for the 14th spot as Chad Mikas decides to go down to pit road, as did Andrew Schau. But Andrew right now going to find himself one lap down. Maybe some of the top three will decide to do something different. Right now, third place, Braxton Deweese going to be a little bit further back on lead battle. And Doug Mindorf, Alan's Art Images in the chat room, supporting that number 13 team once again. Looks like another strong and consistent result. Number 13 of Braxton Deweese. Nevertheless, he's not in the battle for the race lead, and right now Nick Tarbuck is putting down the pressure, perhaps the most we've seen all year long for the 29. He's still looking for win number 1, and what a venue it would be for him to find it once again. First win of 2023 in integrity last year came at Iowa for Nick Tarbuck, and its first in 2024 came in the Octane Series at Daytona. But he's been waiting on Monday nights. He's been waiting nearly a full year for a chance to win once again. Swerving down to the bottom side, he gets out of Alan Rawell's way. Nick Tarbuck is here. Thomas Bressi is going to have to look back sooner than later. As you can see, coming up on the high side out of turn 4, the gap is within 0.2 of a second. You just can't find a way to really seal the deal off corner exit. And that little involvement or altercation with Alan Rawell not going to make much of a difference, but you can see here Nick Tarbuck is trying to dive to the inside of the corner and try to get something better out of it rather than Thomas Bressi, who has that preferable apex. Brandon Bernhardt going to be battling again here with Chuck Sweeting. This battle is going to heat up, although it is not for championship contention. You'll continue to see these drivers try to go at each other, although to no avail. It looks like Chuck Sweeting once again runs away. Vinny Tigner now we're going to be just behind a battle between Tom Wetmore and Michael Stroll. The advantage is going to be the number 3 and the number 08, of course, ahead of Tigner alike, and Michael Stroll right now has track position over Tom Wetmore. Problem right now for Tom, of course, is that he can't quite get around the number 3, at least without some assistance, of course, of his own doing. He's got nobody else to help him out. Now Tom's just got to use that pace. Wetmore, of course, starting outside of the top 10, not the best of starts for him. 14th up to 10th, plus 4, and he's trying to get himself in the mix with all those other championship spoilers. He's ahead right now of Vinny Tigner. The only championship spoiler right now that he would be behind, well, there's none any longer. Chad Mikas fell down to 18th because he went down a pit road, which means Wetmore is the top driver of those not involved in the championship picture to still be up here, and he's coming up on that number 3 rather quick. Meanwhile, side by side, it's going to be the 24 and the 29. Just briefly, but Nick Tarbuck is there. Gap is going to be now less than 1/10 of a second, and as you can see, Nick Tarbuck got up to the high side. Now through the back straightaway, the advantage is now the number 29. Here comes Nick Tarbuck. Down low, going to be Thomas Bressi, and toe-to-toe they come across the stripe for the first time all night long. It is going to be Tarbuck leading the way. Nick Tarbuck sailing through the middle of corners 1 and 2, now going to be fully clear of Thomas Bressi. Taking a look from his onboard, it looks like now Bressi's going to try to recover by using that momentum-filled high side. But perhaps now Bressi's burnt up his stuff to a point where there is no return. He spent 60 laps as your race leader, and now Nick Tarbuck has spent 2. Advantageous. He's already put up 0.2 of a second and is starting to build that advantage, leading the way and pulling distance compared to his adversary in the 24. 150 laps on the table. Track temperature has gone down from a high of 98 degrees Fahrenheit down to 93. 63 laps in out of 150, and it looks like now conditions are becoming much more manageable. But as soon as we mention that, the sun has returned once again, welcoming back the sunny skies in Newton, Iowa. We might see the track temperature increase once more. Winds have remained constant at 7 miles an hour. Relative humidity has decreased to 49, and right now everything working in the favor of Nick Tarbuck, who remained in the tow of Thomas Bresti all throughout the race. Well, now he's at once the driver leading the draft for the entire pack. Take a look further behind. Tom Wetmore still battling here with Michael Stroll. However, with them is going to be Vinny Tigner. It looks like Vinny now having a chance to get himself up inside the top 10 once again. Tigner is right there, finding himself in 11th. And he just can't quite put a bumper on Tom Wetmore, nor can he get there side by side through the corner. Chad Mike is now going to put himself in this picture, but keep in mind, Chad is a lapper here on new rubber. Take a look at how quick that number 25 will sail down to the inside and make his room. 1, 2, 3 drivers passed in a matter of moments, and the number 25 is now up and ahead with nobody else, of course, to worry about here. Mikas will just continue barreling through the field and eventually get his lead lap status back, whether or not he gets it through the green flag pit cycle or if he gets it by his own speed remains to be seen. Vinny Tigner looking up to the ceiling of the track once again. He's got Tom Wetmore right there with, and Michael Stroll still single file. Now with these lappers coming around, it's going to become a little bit trickier to go for positions in an aggressive fashion. Now Michael Stroll's got himself a few extra laps to rethink exactly how he goes at things. Jacob Fife, meanwhile, going to be in P5 with Matthew Thunhorse there in 4th. Take a look back, and you got Blake Gordon in the 6th position, 68 laps in, and Gordon not having a half-bad race. Of course, he needs a good run based on where he came in. Outside of the top 5, advantage for him, of course, he doesn't have. He's going to have to build that advantage with a good race here in Iowa, and just outside the top 5, he's going to start. I think he's going to be in good standing here to go the rest of the way and, of course, try to battle up with Jacob Fife and the likes of which from beginning to the end. Chad Mikas is coming now in the low groove, and this is going to give these drivers, again, a few laps of breathing. Whether or not Blake Gordon wants that, I'm not quite sure here, because it looks like over the last few laps, Gordon has been consistently quicker. But now, a little bit of a stopgap in that plan of passing. Here comes Chad Mikas working right down low, and as the 25 lunges in at each and every corner, Jacob Fife stays high, as does Matthew Thunhorse. Very much the usual suspects at the front of the field. Nick Tarbuck is going to be leading, Thomas Bresi in 2nd, Braxton Luis in 3rd, and Matthew Thunhorse in 4th. Someone who's up in the top 5 earlier on just went down and in after 71 laps. That is going to be Cody Smith, who drops to pit road after nearly half of the race. So for Next Level Racing's number 18 team, Cody Smith, one of the early adopters of the halfway strategy, decided to go in a little bit earlier than all those around him. It's an undercut, and it might get him the race lead for a few laps. Nick Tarbuck is going to now lead 72 laps in out of 150. We're coming up very quickly on that halfway point. It has been a fast race, to put it lightly. No cautions so far. Drivers have been consistent, and this is once again the theme of the Integrity Racing League. The big outlier was Martinsville. Otherwise, we've seen largely caution-free racing all season long. Here comes Kyle Cooper, driver who's also on a little bit of newer rubber here, getting in the battle with Wetmore and Michael Stroll. Now Tom's got himself on the higher groove, which looks to be preferable in these battles, and he's using it very well. The 08 machine now is going to get the run off the corner. That's going to be good for Michael Stroll, who's now going to go top-siding. Just to defend upon Vinny Tigner very briefly. Vinny stays in tow. There is Kyle Cooper right there, and as these drivers remain side by side with one another, it looks like now Kyle Cooper almost taking it 3 wide. He'll have to think better of it and back off once again. Very interesting to see here the plan for Vinny Tigner, as it looks like he will get by Michael Stroll just by staying as passive as possible. Stroll was trying to battle there actively with the likes of Tom Wetmore and Kyle Cooper alike, but it's going to work out in the favor of both drivers who are around Michael. Stroll instead is going to fall back into 10th here, so not the best of night so far for Stroll. Certainly room to be improved upon, and the question becomes whether or not that number 3 team can get back up there. Pit strategy will answer our question. 75 laps in out of 150, Nick Tarbuck will come across the line as your race leader with 75 now laps to go. Second place, Thomas Bressi. Braxton Deweese will be in third. Blake Gordon is in P4. Matthew Thunhorse is in fifth with Jacob Fife sixth and Rob Ackley then seventh place. Tom Wetmore's eighth and Vinny Tigner's in ninth with 10th and last and being Michael Stroll in that number 3. Michael's now coming down to pit road and our cycle has begun. So just before we get down to the nitty gritty of pit road, we'd like to thank iRacing Motorsport Simulations for their continued support live on FTN. The pioneer of online motorsport for 16 plus years, iRacing has led the way for virtual racers from the amateur level all the way up to professional motorsport to train and practice on laser scan replicas of cars and tracks of all ages of motorsport. Visit iRacing.com for additional information on how to sign up now. With 73 laps to go, we will return after the following message from our friends at iRacing. "70 laps remaining, neither Nick Tarbuck nor Thomas Bressi have decided to go down to pit road. However, a slew of drivers behind them have made the charge in, notably Matthew Thunhorst, Jacob Fife, Blake Gordon, Tom Wetmore, Rob Ackley, and Michael Stroll, all of which who have already gone down and in for the first time tonight. And now it's going to be the 29 and 24 joining them. Tarbuck goes in first and foremost, and Thomas Bressi comes in only a car length behind. 81 laps for the both of them, and they went long. This will be an advantage for the rest of the race, of course, and it looks like of all the relevant drivers, shall we say, all the top 10 in points, these two lasted the longest and went the exact same distance, so a wonderful job for the both of them, and now they'll come in together, leaving Vinny Tigner as your race leader. And we were bound to see Vinny Tigner at the head of the field tonight, based on, of course, his experience with just last week in Saturday Night Thunder. It felt like there would only be a matter of time until the number 12 got the top spot. Maybe not the way he was anticipating. Nevertheless, he finds himself now up and ahead and leads the way 83 laps in out of 150. Then you got Brian McFerrin right now, number 7, 2.5 seconds back. You got Chad Mikus in third, Don Stevenson fourth, and Kyle Cooper then in fifth. Cody Smith will be P6 and Nick Tarbuck will be 7th, with Thomas Bressi 8th, and now that's because he's one lap down. Of all those a lap down, Nick Tarbuck is the leader. Of all those on new tire, Cody Smith is technically the leader. So here's how it goes. 3 drivers are ahead of Cody Smith who are on the very much alternate strategy on the night. The drivers who went down to pit road at about lap 50 rather than about lap number 75. So Chad Mikus, he is going to be your net race leader on strategy, at least temporarily. Then, of course, you have immediately thereafter Don Stevenson and Kyle Cooper, 1, 2, 3. That's going to change with Cody Smith coming up very soon, but tentatively, this is how it looks. It'll be the number 18 in net 4th, Nick Tarbuck in net 5th, and so on and so forth. Although it looks like now, it looks like Nick Tarbuck is right there behind the 18 of Smith, and even this will change. Now Brian McFerrin decides to go in after 85 laps. That'll leave Vinny Tigner out on his own means, and he'll have to come down very soon before most likely that lap 100 marker. I sincerely doubt the fact that he can go any longer than that without, of course, needing a pit stop. No other drivers tried it, and now Vinny Tigner in uncharted territories decided to go even longer. Matthew Thunhorse is looking to get his lap back, and that he will. Sliding to the inside, the number 8 machine goes, and Braxton Deweese comes right there with. Now looking to the inside, Vinny Tigner decides to opt down to pit road, and that will be his first and only pit stop of the day. Then you got Chad Mikas coming through in second and Don Stevenson in third. Nick Tarbuck is P4 with Kyle Cooper fifth, and then you got Thomas Bresty making his way right around. So there you go, Tom Wetmore now going to find himself position number 12. Thomas Bresty additionally gets by Cooper, that's for P5, and so now Cooper going to be falling down big on this alternate strategy. Vinny Tigner now going to be falling back down the order. He's going to go one lap down at least for a few moments time, and he decides to go the longest of anyone here, the direct opposite of that undercut, the overcut, shall we say. That's the strategy put in place here by the number 12. Vinny makes his move, 62 laps to go, and he's going to jump back on the way. Braxton Deweese toe-to-toe now with Tom Wetmore. Well, he got by Tom. Now Cody Smith is up next. Got through Jacob Fife as well, and for 7th, Braxton Deweese once again makes the pass. Kyle Cooper going to be up top there. That's going to be for 6th. And already, Braxton Deweese is right there within a few corners. Side by side, now you can see that's the difference between 10 laps of age on tire and 39 laps of age. 29 laps, the separation between Deweese and Cooper on tire, and right now that advantage is clear. Staying out longer, it was the difference maker, and it looks like the two-stop strategy won't be all too successful in the long term. Every other driver's making their way by, and now it looks like Kyle Cooper is going to have to start considering when that next trip to pit road is. 40 laps in, and expecting to see a pit road appearance for the one more time. 73 team in 10 laps here. Cody Smith is coming up on the way. This is going to be the battle for 9th, and I anticipate it will not be all too much of a battle. And maybe it will be, but it'll be Tom Wetmore deciding to drop down low. Cody Smith looked like he awkwardly makes it through the corner following Kyle Cooper, and that is not going to help him out in the slightest. Here comes Wetmore once again. Drop it to the bottom. It's going to be Tom Wetmore making 2 positions up in one set of corner. That's up to 9th for Tom Wetmore, and he finds himself now behind Blake Gordon and Jacob Fife. Here comes now the number 25 of Chad Mikas working his way off a pit road, and the 25 machine, well, he's coming through for his 2nd pit stop, and he comes in rather early, 40 laps in. Just like that, it's going to be the number 25 coming through early for his 2nd and final pit stop on the day, and necessary for his strategy. Don Stevenson right now running in 3rd. He's due to be caught up to. Matthew Thunhorse is now 2 seconds back on that number 47. Interestingly enough, right now, Matthew Thunhorse is going to hold the fort for 4th. Don Stevenson, he's going to be caught up too quick. The only 2 drivers that got by, Thomas Bresty and Nick Tarbuck. And right now, in that number 29, Tarbuck is pulling through. It looks like he's doing so significantly better. He's made up over a 2nd on the 24 of Bresty. 1 second behind is Thomas Bresty, a 1.5 seconds back on him, Don Stevenson. The top 5 is separate now by 4 seconds, and the top 10 is separated by 8 seconds. Braxton Deweese now is going to be in that 5th spot, and it looks like some pressure from Brian McFerrin. From that number 7, he'll go down right to the bottom. With McFerrin low, another set of drivers who are going to be waiting for just a moment to go for that aggressive approach. Braxton Deweese now going to cut under with the number 7, and he might actually get an advantage from following McFerrin through. That's something we've seen attempted before. We saw it with Tom Wetmore just 5 laps back, and it looks like once again might come into play. Now Don Stevenson's going to be in a tricky spot. He's got Brian McFerrin boxing him in, and now you can see that number 8 machine of Matthew Thunhorse cutting low. With them is going to be Braxton Deweese, and just like this, going to be Don Stevenson falling from 3rd down to 5th. One, two, three. Now it's going to be very familiar. Domination, Intimidation Racing leading, and then JTM 2nd and 3rd. Justin Morton not with us tonight after being eliminated last round. However, the core of the team has returned again, and so have their results. Now Don Stevenson goes in after 48 laps. It looks like he couldn't hang on any longer, and now that number 47, no choice but to concede after a 48-lap stint. It'll be Stevenson making it through, 1 lap down now, and meanwhile Braxton Weiss is getting closer and closer to Matthew Thunhorst. It looks like now Braxton has a chance to make it up inside the podium. Matthew Thunhorst right ahead and nearly getting up into the wall down the back straightaway. All the while, DeWeese cuts deep, and it looks like now it'll be the number 13 pulling away for third place. Take a look off the back end for DeWeese, and you will see Thunhorst already strikes back side by side to turns 1 and 2. Matthew Thunhorst is not done yet, and he won't quit in just one pass. Instead, Thunhorst is going to decide to slide down to the inside. Can't quite make anything of it here. Here comes Chad Mikus, who's going to temporarily stop the action. And so now, let's take a lap on board with that number 8 and see what's going on. Taking a look at the board now for Matthew Thunhorst. It looks like he hasn't quite been able to make any gains here. He's gotten close, was side by side, but ever since, of course, Braxton Weiss got by him, well, just a few laps ago, it looks like the pace has been in the favor of that number 13. Thunhorst has had a great race so far, running solidly in the 4th spot. Nevertheless, not much has changed right now for that number 4, and he's got to keep on waiting for his next shot. All the while, Jacob Fife is going to be in 5th, and we mentioned Fife has been strong at these short tracks before, and he's coming alive once again rather late. Question becomes, of course, what can be done here? He's in 5th. Could he get up there to Matthew Thunhorst, who's in P4? Maybe up to Braxton Weiss in 3rd. Another podium would be wonderful for the number 36 team, and I think it would just about be the best possible run for, of course, Fife. These last few races, of course, Talladega, a track he's won at before. Now he finds himself back at the short circuits. And before we go on to the intermediate racing, where most every driver is strong, well, why not get another good run in at a track where you are better at? Looks like right now, 46 laps to go, he has proven to have that advantage in his pocket once again. And right now, the top 5 drivers, as you see him, are going to gain the most in the championship standings. Jacob Fife would remain above the bubble, as would Thunhorst jump ahead of it. And it looks like Nick Tarbuck would lock himself into the round of 5 for the championship finale. Braxton Weiss and Thomas Bresci are already ahead of the cut by a significant margin. And with the way they're running right now, 2nd and 3rd, it will be another wonderful day to add to their points column, which is already chock full of bonuses and victories and poles alike. Leading, though, 106 laps in at a 150, Nick Tarbuck. Then from there, you got Thomas Bresci in 2nd, 3rd place in Braxton DeWeese, and then Matthew Thunhorst, who is in 4th. 5th place for Jacob Fife, and 6th for Blake Gordon. 7th spot would be Tom Wetmore, and 8th will be Rob Acme. 9th place is Michael Stroll. 10th, going to be right now Vinny Tigner in the number 12. We'd once again like to thank Cody Smith, of course, the ambassador for Next Level Racing, bringing the highest quality sim racing performance products to dedicated sim racers who deserve nothing but the best. Visit nextlevelracing.com for additional information about simulation racing's leading hardware provider, and we'll return after our first message from our friends at nextlevelracing.com. Cody Smith right now, 1 lap down with 41 laps to go in the championship battle. Well, it's the talk of Newton, Iowa. Overall, every one of those top 10 places right now revolves around a championship driver with the exception of 2. Tom Wetmore and Vinny Tigner. Tom right now is going to be running in 7th, and then you got Vinny Tigner who's going to be occupying P10 here. Overall, the championship favorites have been dominant again, and Nick Tarbuck is coming alive. He has not yet gotten a victory, but we mentioned he has been a model of consistency, though. Of course, the question has become, can he find his way back to victory lane? I think tonight is evidence enough that he still has what it takes. So perhaps tonight is the night it all comes down to it. Win or lose, do or die. Perform tonight, and you'll have yourself a chance to lock into what's next. That, of course, being the final race, the round of 5. And Nick Tarbuck might come in as an underdog, but nevertheless, success tonight is all he needs. As it stands, currently going to be a race leader, and he's been that way for the past now 50-plus laps. Let's see whether or not he finishes the job now. Now it's going to be 38 laps to go. Tarbuck is ahead by 2.8 seconds. Thomas Bressi still remains in 2nd. 3rd place is now going to be 6.5 seconds back, and that is going to be Braxton Deweese. And then you got 4th and Matthew Thunhorst, 5th and Jacob Fife, and 6th place will be Blake Gordon. Tom Wetmore is then in there going to be P7, Rob Ackley in 8th, and right now for Domination Intimidation Racing, while top 10s for Ackley and Michael Stroll will suffice as, shall we say, the bare minimum. There's a lot more to be desired, of course, for both of these drivers. Question becomes, can they find it at an intermediate circuit? I think that's the tricky thing. Perhaps they don't quite have what's left on the table, and Michael Stroll has been solid at these short circuits. I don't really think he's got a best track type. The big tracks have come to him nicely, but that is a complete variety. Whether or not we, of course, talk about Talladega, Daytona, or a track like Michigan or Auto Club, big tracks above 2 miles in length have suited Michael Stroll all season long, and they've suited Rob Ackley as well. He's gotten notable success in circuits of that nature, but I honestly do not believe that we are going to see something too surprising out of either of them, and they might find themselves on the chopping block by the time we head to that penultimate race in just 2 weeks' time. Still, yes, there is time to turn that around, but I do not necessarily believe that is going to be all too likely if, of course, these drivers do not step up in a race like tonight. Jacob Fife is going to be 5th here, still coming up on Matthew Thunhorst. While the gains have been marginal, they have been noticeable. And it looks like now, while Jacob Fife is not necessarily breathing down the neck of that number 8 machine, he's definitely gotten closer, and I think the question becomes whether or not now he can continue to make those gains in the heat of the moment. Done a good job to get to this point, but this could prove to be a pivotal race for Jacob and his championship chances, so as long as he can keep on going, well, he's going to have a fair chance at getting into the round of 5. He just has to be successful, of course, in those next 2 races, but coming into this race ahead of the bubble is a huge deal. And the fact that Nick Tarbuck will be the only upset ahead of him, shall we say, a driver who's coming in from outside the top 5 up, it's also a big thing, because then you have some of the usual suspects, including Matthew Thunhorst, Braxton Deweese, and Thomas Bressi, and he might even get by Matthew Thunhorst here if, of course, he does the right thing, for his sake anyway, it makes that pass. Still, a big question mark with 30 laps to go next time around. 30 remaining, and we are getting awful close to the end of the Next Level Racing chase for the championship in both the Ignite and Octane series. Winner of the championship will receive a $2,000 sim rig for both Monday and Tuesday's championship, courtesy of Next Level Racing. Make sure to visit their website at nextlevelracing.com for additional information, as we're going to crank it up once again now with 30 laps to go very soon with our sights and sounds. But we're going to bring you your final promotional messages of the day from Next Level Racing. We'll be right back once more after this. 26 laps to go. Nick Tarbuck is going to be leading the way. Thomas Bressie second. Braxton Deweese is in third. As it stands right now, the podium is going to be rather far apart, but they're doing a good job just hanging on the positions which they have. Question becomes from here, what can they do to maintain? I think right now, it's not really much a question. It's a simple question, shall we say. The answer is clear. Just hold on to where you are. It's not really about making passes or taking anything hostage, shall we say. Just keep on going for Braxton Deweese. Matthew Thunhorse is going to be fifth here because he just got passed by Jacob Fife at number 36. He's doing a fantastic job, of course, making his way in to the top 5 and even going further. Pro Powder and Paint's number 36 team, the flagship for that two-car crew. We haven't seen all too much of Jim Fife in the Ignite series. Nevertheless here, of course, Jacob Fife has held himself down. No teammates, but just a load of success, especially with that victory last week in Martinsville. Podium once again, a magic run for the 36. Fourth place, though, ain't half bad. 23 laps to go this time by. Next time through, we're going to crank it up with the best in iRacing cameras. Visit TrackCams22.com for additional information after tonight's broadcast. The best camera providers are chosen by the best broadcasters, and there's no better than TrackCams. Visit Facebook.com or TrackCams22.com for additional information, as we are now going to show you the sights and sounds of the Iowa Speedway and crank it up with 22 laps to go. "17 laps remaining here as we come back from our Crank It Up on FTN. And I'll tell you this much, Nick Tarbuck has been smooth sailing ever since he made that pass some 70 laps ago. Now the question becomes, of course, with 16 remaining, well, what else is there to do? He's been leading laps back and forth. I really don't think there's much he's got to worry about. Thomas Bressie is 5.5 seconds back. Now he's just got to hang on and remain calm here until the very end. Bressie going to be in second, Braxton Deweese third, Jacob Fife is in fourth. And Tom Wetmore has been the hardest charger on the day and perhaps the biggest surprise given his qualifying standing. Didn't seem to have really anything in those first 30 or so laps, but ever since then, he's been able to make his way all the way through the field. And now, well, he puts himself in a pretty good spot where He's in 7th. Not a bad day for him, as of course a part-time contender, missing the opening some 20 races of the campaign, but returning now and giving us better and better performances each and every week. Maybe Wetmore has a chance to play spoiler and become the first spoiler on the campaign to win a race in this playoffs. Real good chance, of course, if anyone is to do it. Thomas Bresci, of course, has gotten the victory, as has someone like Braxton Weiss or Blake Gordon or Jacob Fife, the drivers who we've seen on the campaign many a time come to victory lane. Maybe Tom Wetmore could be one of the many, of course, to come through, but not as a championship contender, instead as a race-winning spoiler in the title fights. 13 laps to go, coming to 12 this time by. Dozen laps to do it. Nick Tarbuck that time through ran a 25.366, so relative to his tire wear from his best lap to his most recent, it's about 1.3 seconds overall. So tire wear hasn't been all too major, and I think that's something that might have added to the challenge, actually, of making passes, because you haven't had to worry all too much about the tire degradation. It hasn't been anything too extreme. It is still more than a second, but that is not over the portion of 20 laps or 30 laps or 40 laps. That is nearly 60 straight laps of racing under green, and a tire deficit is only a second and a third relative to where we started. So if you want to put that into context, you are losing only 2/100ths of a second, maybe, each and every lap? A little bit more than that, but still a minute amount and a significantly smaller fraction than a majority of what we've seen at these other tracks. Richmond and Iowa, especially now with this reconfiguration, have been rather kind to all those who, from the front of the field all the way to the back, have had to work on managing their stuff. I think that's exactly what we're seeing again today. So 10 laps to go, coming to 9 this time by. Drivers are once again getting settled in, and I think this time around they're just getting settled in to go home and collect the checkered flag. And 9 laps to go here for Nick Tarbuck. Take a look a little bit further back. Cody Smith and Brendan Bernhardt might be going at each other. Smith is going to be on that alternate 2-stop strategy, and right now every spot he can make up would be especially valuable, as he finds himself here, of course, still trying to maybe win that best of the rest championship, shall we say. He's got Brendan Bernhardt just ahead of him, though, and it's not really the best of nights for Smith, who started inside of, well, the top 10. He started in 3rd, as a matter of fact, so to be down here right now fighting for 14th is really not the best indicator of the performance that we expected of Cody Smith. He's been strong in qualifying many a time, but oftentimes we see him sort of lack it when it comes down to that race pace. Unfortunately, it's the same old, shall we say, for Cody Smith. Still not a bad race by any means, but he went for that alternate strategy, and everyone knew it would be a risk. That's why the majority of the field decided not to go for it, and so it's looking a little bit different now for the number 18. Smith is going to have to recover and put things back together again. He's at 14th right now. Brian McFerrin 13th. Chad Mike is 12th. Chuck Sweeting 11th, and he's the final driver outside of the lead lap right now. Chuck Sweeting, who is in 19th, he's gotten himself up into 11th here, so he's another very hard charger today, and we last saw him when he was running in 18th. So Sweeting has benefited the most from taking that one-stop strategy. Even though his pace has not been fantastic tonight, he has beaten all those on the 2-stop strategy and the slowest of those on the one-stoppers. So now Chuck Sweeting is reaping the benefits and almost going to come away with the top 10 as a result. Very close, and Sweeting overall making the best out of an unfortunate, or shall we say, disadvantaged situation. Blake Gordon is in 6th, having a pretty solid race overall for a driver who needs to just continue hammering down with consistency. Although a top 5 would be necessary for Gordon tonight, this isn't a half-bad start. He just has to make sure he improves upon it on the next race, which of course is going to be Kansas for 140 laps. So this isn't a bad start, but it is not a great one either. It's still going to be solid, but minimizing damage is not making gains, and there's a clear difference. And now that we're in the round of 10, that difference has become even more important. You can minimize damage and make it through the round of 15. You cannot minimize entirely and expect to make it out of the round of 10. There is too much on the line, there's too few spots to gain, and there's too much pressure. All comes down to, of course, making those final 5 spots, and it looks like Nick Tarbuck is going to knock that pressure right out the way, and he's going to get on the move as if he has no concern of it. It'll be 3 laps to go, coming to 2 laps remaining. Popsicle sticks in the air, and they're going to be waving high for Nick Tarbuck, who's looking for his first win of the season, and he's had to wait nearly the entire year from February on to find victory lane at a track he's already won at before. Iowa Speedway has brought good fortune to Nick Tarbuck last year, and it looks like it has again. To add to that second place start, he had to wait some 60 laps to take the race lead, but since then, it has been all his. 1 lap to go, white flags out on an all-clean, all-green race in Newton, Iowa, and collecting the checkered flag when it means the most, well, that's the definition of clutch. And for Nick Tarbuck, he came into the championship tonight, 9th seed, up 10, and coming all the way from the bottom straight to the top, collecting the checkered flag from the Iowa Speedway, Nick Tarbuck wins from Iowa, this time on a Monday night, and he will advance to the championship in Homestead, Miami. Major win for the 29. His championship chances significantly higher now. He's the driver who's going for 2 championships in 2 series, eligible both for the Ignite and Octane Series title. Look at him now. He once again is inside of victory lane. At long last, on a Monday no less. It's a wonderful performance for Nick Tarbuck to collect the checkered flag, and it looks like now's the time he will burn down the house. Tarbuck then and there going to park it to the start-finish line of 300 laps run at Iowa over the course of the Ignite Series history. Only 1 caution. That caution came in September of 2023. Checkered flag is going to fly for Nick Tarbuck, winning over Thomas Bressing in second, and Braxton Deweese in third, with Jacob Fife fourth on the day. Then you have Matthew Funnels concluding the top 5. Fife again keeping that streak strong at these short tracks with top 5 finishes, and Blake Gordon, we expected him to do well. That he did in 6th. The biggest championship spoiler tonight comes in 7th place. That's Tom Wetmore. Rob Acme is 8th. Michael Stroll is 9th. And Vinny Tigner concludes the top 10. You got 11th place from there, which will be Chuck Sweeting, and Chad Mikas is 12th, with Brian McFerrin then 13th. Then you got 14th, Cody Smith. Brandon Bernhardt is going to be in that 15th spot, with Don Stevenson, P16. Kyle Cooper 17th. Daniel Foss will then be in 18th, Andrew Schaub 19th, and Alan Rawell 20th, with Cal Filarski 21st and last in tonight's affair. Overall, the number 29 has been waiting to find victory all throughout the Ignite Series season. It's a wonder he hasn't so far, given how successful he's been in the Integrity Ignite Series. We would have expected maybe by now he'd at least 1 victory, perhaps. Well, had to wait a while, but it makes it all the more meaningful. In 2023, in spring of 2023, Nick Tarbuck collected his first victory at Iowa in the Integrity Octane Series. It's been a year and a half since that date, and now, in the Ignite Series, a major victory in Iowa again. Nick Tarbuck, first victory of the year, and this one will lock you in as a championship contender to finish off 2024. What a performance tonight, and a necessary one to keep up the battle for the championship.
Yes, sir, man. I'm glad that I waited this long to get a win. Playoffs is super awesome. Locking into the championship round here is it's awesome. I mean, I'm so lucky that I was able to hit all my marks this race, and this race in particular. to make it into the next round. It was really geez, man, that first run was rough. Gosh, didn't know if I was burning the tires or not burning the tires or whatever. But that second run, I just locked in, didn't lose focus for however long it was, and just saw the gap keep growing and growing. I'm like, all right, this is gonna be it.
And it looks like it all came down to that first pass you made on Thomas Bressi at lap 60 of this race. From there, you led clean and green without any challenge, and we saw you behind Thomas Bressi very close to kick the race off. Could you talk us through, of course, how you kept yourself so close and kept that nice distance until you made the move?
Yeah, I wasn't really sure about how to race around people on this track too well. I don't necessarily know this track. I mean, I guess I do more than I think, but I don't really know this track that well. I don't like to know if I'm going too hard or too easy on the tires. So I was just trying to keep pace with them, and I figured as long as I wasn't like really burning the rears or the fronts, then I would be able to keep pace. And yeah, Braxton tried to pass a few times down low, and I a little bit of practice I got earlier in the session, I realized you really couldn't pass if you were on somewhat equal tires. So I just had to really try not to burn my stuff up, and eventually I was able to just work around Bressi. I tried to low line a few times, and it just was not working. So I figured, I'd just try to toss it up on the high side, and luckily it stuck, and I was able to just keep jabbing the throttle to keep next to him. But after that, it was really just mirror driving for the whole rest of that stint. Had no idea when to pit, so I just kind of pit randomly whenever it felt decent. And yeah, that second half of the run, man, I just straight up from leaving the pit stall to the checkered flag, I'm pretty sure I didn't blink. So yeah, the first run was pretty fun though, trying to get hold position and try to not get past on the low side.
And with that being said, now the championship worry is all going to be behind. You came in as the ninth seed and you come through with the first win of this round, a huge one at that. So we have two races left in the round, but of course getting this victory makes everything all the more important here, of course, for the finale. Are your sights going to be set on what's up for next week, or are you now going to focus on perhaps what's due to come?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this race was not on my calendar at all. Like I didn't have this marked off whatsoever. So I mean, I would have figured Las Vegas would be a better racetrack for me to actually try to win. So I'm still going to try to do the best I can at Las Vegas. New Hampshire, I am just super glad the finale's not there because I am god awful at New Hampshire. And I mean, Homestead, I'm going to try to get some more practice in and get some more reps in there. But I think I'm just going to try and treat it like every other race and just go in there and see if, see what I can do, see how it plays out. And if I have it, then I have it. And if not, then, we'll see how the race plays out. But I'm just going to take them one race at a time and just keep having fun with it, really.
Now, of course, going to be less worried. Opportunity, of course, have some fun with what's left in the season. Nick Tarbuck, victory here in Iowa Speedway. Any last messages or shout outs you'd like to give?
Yeah, man. Well, I want to thank you for broadcasting as always. I want to thank the admins for putting on a good race. Thanks to everybody for showing up. Thanks to everybody who watched. The wife, also shout out. 1 year anniversary. So pretty awesome to get a win on our 1 year anniversary. It's just the gift she wanted, I'm sure. Thanks to everybody in the Discord, other Discord that watched. Mom, dad, boys back home. And yeah, that's it. I guess we'll see you next week.
And now with a huge victory, in the process of racing in Iowa, you come away again with the checkered flag. Tarbuck already advanced into that championship finale. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
With Nick on the move, up next, Thomas Bressi, who started in first today and had to, of course, come through only with second. Still very solid all throughout the night and nevertheless finishes on the podium. Bressi, P2 to kick off the round of 10. Solid points night, but I feel like I've said it a few times as of late. I'm sure you would have loved to go out there and have collected the victory yourself.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, I'm happy because I would say a love-hate relationship with Iowa, but it's more of a hate-hate relationship with Iowa. So to get the pole and lead a bunch of laps and finish second, get good halfway points, like I guess I can't be too upset about that. But on the other hand, this is probably there's only been a very small number of times I've run a race at Iowa where I felt like I could have won. This is probably the first one where I felt like I maybe should have. So that sort of sucks. I don't know. I thought I was doing what I needed to do the first run, and I thought I was probably around halfway through that first run. I thought I was starting to pull away from Nick a little bit, and then he just he came back in a big way at the end. So I think I just kind of, I don't know, I think I used the right rear up a little bit too much. It wasn't bad, but it was just a hair too free, and I should have short pitted by a lap probably, just to try and get the track position back. I was watching Braxton in third. He pitted, and then I was kind of looking at the gap. I was like, well, I could probably go like 2 more laps on an overcut and be fine. And I probably should have realized that Nick was going to think the same thing. So I should have just gone 1 more and then short pitted. And then I don't know where in the world the pace that he got on that last run. So good on him, I guess. So, I mean, yeah, decent night, I guess. I mean, good news. I beat everybody behind me by like 5.5 seconds. The problem is, though, I still got my butt kicked by like 6.5. So if we erase that last bit, it was a great night.
And we want to talk about the tires and how important they were when it came down to passing. Seems like a lot of drivers had some troubles passing out of a pit road anyway. And we saw, of course, Martinsville, maybe another example of that. The new Xfinity package on iRacing. You think that had any role in how you performed tonight?
Yeah, possibly. Some of us were actually talking about it after the race there before we jumped out of the session, but I there's they made a lot of changes to this car in the latest build, and they basically took the front springs out of it. And I mean, like we were on the splitter on the straightaway at Talladega. So, I mean, I'm surprised that we didn't wear like half a foot of the right front fender off. It was dragging so bad into turn one. I mean, it was really like you had to be super precise of where you put the car into one, and even still you were just skating across the bumps anyways, even if you got it quote right. 3 and 4 you could move around a little bit, but it was hard to make passes. I mean, I felt like 3 and 4 you could move around a little bit, which is why I felt at least better about the first run, because I was kind of able to cover that and get good drive off of 4. And then Nick kind of caught me with my pants down, I guess, in the middle of 1 and 2 and just rolled around me on the outside, and that was kind of it. So, um, but yeah, I mean, just talking to Matt and stuff like that, and I heard Blake was talking about it. It was just sounded like it was impossible to pass, which can't say I'm surprised. Unfortunately, it's hit or miss with this car. Unfortunately, I wish it drove a little better, like it probably should, but it is what it is.
And everything works out again for a good points night. Is up next on the calendar. We have ourselves Kansas, 2 final races to lock in, and still going to expand that points buffer you have over the majority of the field here. How are you feeling about heading back to the intermediates for our penultimate 1.5 mile race?
Yeah, honestly not bad. I mean, of the tracks in this round, Iowa was probably the one that I was the most fearful of just because it hasn't been good for me historically. I think Vegas next week will be decent. Um, I wouldn't say I'm awesome there, but I certainly think I'll do pretty well. And then New Hampshire, I also really don't like, but I run decent there. So I'm hoping that, we'll do okay there. And, maybe if next week goes well, then we won't have to worry about what happens at New Hampshire. But looking forward to it, and just happy to get out of this though with a good point, honestly, because I mean, even though I was the top seed, I think after the reset, I think I was only what like 9, 10 points above the cut line, so really nobody was safe. So um, just to get a top 2 finish, top 2 at halfway, led laps, won the pole, like got just about as many bonus points as I could have hoped for, at least to try and help that. So we'll see how it goes, but just like we have all year, just trying to take it a race at a time. So we'll see.
We'll see, of course, what's up next. Already getting yourself a podium to kick off this second round. Any final shout outs you'd like to give? Thomas, the floor is yours.
Yeah, just as always, shout out to the JT Motorsports guys. Justin wasn't here tonight, but Matt did a great job getting the P5. So congrats to him on the top 5 run. Thanks to all the series admins for everything that they do and putting this together. Of course, you doing the broadcasts, all of our partners that support the league, not just the Monday night series, but the Octane series on Tuesdays as well. And hopefully everybody that tuned in enjoyed the race.
And Thomas Bresci, P2 here in Iowa, once again coming away with a strong result of the short track. Thank you again for your time.
Take care, man.
Thomas Bresci on the move. One more driver coming in. Braxton Deweese, P3, getting back to podium once again for the 13 crew. And Braxton now standing by as our final driver to enter the podium ceremony. Braxton, how was it out there?
It was, I mean, it was pretty good, especially since we went green. But I think everybody was probably kind of having the same issues or same problems of just hitting the track on entry, and it just wouldn't really turn too much. But all in all, to be able to start fifth and get up to third and um, go through the green flags pit stops with no mistakes and be able to come home third, I'm happy with that. Considering I had to pack up all pretty much all my steering wheel, my pedals, and my shifter, and mount it to I call it my mobile rig. It's just what I started out with, just a set like a $70 uh, little stand you can mount your steering wheel, shifter, and pedals to. And I came over to my mom's house because I'm still out of power and don't have uh, any internet. So came over here and I'm glad she was able to let me do this, and I'm glad I was able to get a third place out of it. So it definitely makes all this a lot better.
And a good recovery, of course, even to have yourself a simulator for tonight. Fifth up the third, so you were able to make some passes, although it looked like it was rather tricky to make any all night long. Strategy, the end-all be-all, and you found yourself making gains on that second stint. 70 laps on the final run. How were the tires for you? It looked like fall-off was very minimal tonight.
Yeah, I felt like I did a little bit better on the second run there, with just trying to lean a little bit more on the right rear. And I think I messed up and uh, burned the right front off a little too much on the first run and just lost too much time to them guys up there to even have a shot in the second run. So I kind of knew if I could keep Matthew and Jacob behind me, then I could probably come home third as long as we had no mistakes, and as long as they had no mistakes at me as well. So um, like I said, it was on the splitter and it was just tight on entry. Even if it wasn't on the splitter, it was just tight on entry, but it definitely felt like it. It would hit a couple times if you went in the corner wrong, and it would just bounce and it'd make it a little tight. So it is what it is. Glad we were able to work to a third, like I said. And, should be a pretty good points night.
Another good points night to add on to the tally, coming in as a second seed and building up that points advantage on the buffer. Of course, Kansas is up next. Mile-and-a-half circuit. You've been strong at many of those before this season. Maybe a chance to come back to victory lane?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely the goal every time we go out on the racetrack. But Las Vegas should be a pretty good race just in general, and hopefully we can capitalize and be two spots better and get a win and lock ourselves into the championship race. But all in all, hopefully we can still have a good run and good points day to still um, make it on points, at least if we don't get a win. So points racing for now. We'd love to get a win, but you want to try to stay out during halfway and be as close as you can to first to get the points. And if we do what we did today, next week, I'd be definitely fine with that as well. But I'd like to be maybe a little bit better, because I feel like you're gonna have to win at Homestead. I believe that's the racetrack we're going to for the championship, but um, you're just gonna have to be on it. So this is the last mile and a half before then, so hopefully we can try to dial in a little bit. It's a little different with it being kind of like a cookie cutter, having a try over or whatever, and Homestead being straight on both straightaways. Um, so it definitely correlates a little bit, and we'll try to see what we can do.
And now, of course, getting another strong result, kicking off another round with a promising performance. P3 here from Iowa. Braxton, any last shout-outs you'd like to give?
Yeah, most definitely. Big shout out to Allen's Arts Images on the car, as well as Interstate Ford, Bennett's Publical, Jane's on Main, Luis Renovations, Booth 34 Diecast, and Rivals Photography, Blaze Designs, as well as Evan Pineda Designs. This is an Evan Pineda Designs car, so big shout out to him for that. I'm gonna give a shout out to Bullet Out Coffee Company. You can use Brax5 for 10% off over there. And I want to say rest in peace to Pete Rose. He was my favorite. Obviously, I didn't get to watch him play when he played, but he was someone I looked up to when I was playing baseball as a little kid, and ultimately changed my number to 14 a couple years because of him. So, kind of sad that he passed away, but it all happens. Unfortunately, it was just his time, and we're just gonna keep on going. I know he'd want everybody else to just keep on going, so what we're gonna do.
And going tonight for a third place run, Braxton Ruiz taking it back to the podium here in Iowa once again. Thank you for stopping by.
Thanks, David. Have a great rest of your week, man.
And so we've gotten a word from your top 3 finishers. Braxton Luis making his way back into the podium in 3rd, Thomas Brescia in 2nd, and once again coming away with a top 2 finish for Brescia to the 2nd consecutive short track. And Nick Tarbuck, first win of the season and a long-anticipated victory for the 29 crew, who once again return to the top of the pylon. What a race, of course, for each and every driver who's put themselves into this field time and time again, and giving us great short track racing, caution free for 150 laps, and that is something surely to be proud of. Of course, now the question becomes, what's next? Kansas, 140 laps for the 2nd race of the campaign. That is, of course, Kansas Speedway. Round of 10, 3 races. Now, can a driver solidify their advantage over the championship? Will we see an underdog once again come for the bottom all the way up to the top? Many questions still to be answered as we will go racing same time, same place next Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern live on FTN. You've been watching exclusive coverage from the virtual Iowa Speedway. I've been your host, David Kreutz, commentating and producing. For more coverage of the Integrity Ignite series, tune in on Monday nights for race 28 up next at the Kansas Speedway until we finish our 30-race season at the end of October here in 2024. If you'd like to join the FTN community, visit the Discord QR code on your screen, and you can join any of our broadcasted leagues on FTN from Monday to Sunday and everywhere in between. Thank you for tuning in to coverage of the Ignite the Excitement 150. We hope you have a fantastic night.